Hello, my name's Drew. I'm going to be doing Berserk videos from now on. I'm going to be starting with my first video covering wounds from the Golden Age arc. But I also wanted to do a quick introduction video because how I feel about the series in general. Kentaro Miura deserves a Nobel Prize for this, for literature. That's going to be the main goals of covering these videos. It's going to be my crusade, my campaign. I hope you guys support me, but I hope you enjoy the videos more. Thanks for watching. Oh, wait, on another note, I apologize for the watermark that are going to be in these videos. When I actually have the ability to buy the software that I'm using for the editing, I will, but kind of broke right now. For now, you have to deal with the watermark, but when I have the ability to remove it, I will be doing so. Thank you again for watching. The main reason why I wanted to start with wounds, by the way, is because it is easily the most impactful of the entire story as far as Guts' growth. Not only that, but Casca's. But I also wanted to choose this one because there's a lot of things that go on later in the story that this little portion of the story elaborates on. There's a lot of things like this in the story of Berserk where on the first read, you're not going to catch everything. I've read it like 9 times through and I'm still catching things. But we're going to be focusing on Guts and Casca's evolution together and how it mutually benefited both of them, even if it pulled both of them away from Griffith. The first topic we're going to talk about is actually addressing one of the fallacies that a lot of Berserk fandom has. It's that the entire story is based off of nihilism and Nietzsche's work, which is true in a regard, but you know who is far more present within the story and landscape of Berserk? Carl Jung, especially in the regards of Guts and Casca's relationship. The anima and animus, both the feminine part of a man and the male part of a woman, is incredibly crucial to the development of these two characters. Not only that, but when we get into talking about Griffith, maybe not this video, but somewhat this video, we'll talk about how he essentially represents both of their ideas of delusions and actually ends up being more of a negative aspect in their life, definitely more so in the future, uh, than anybody actually knows. He's the best Lucifer character for a reason. That's another video itself, though. For now, when Anemus and Anima meet, the Anemus draws his sword of power and Anima ejects her poison of illusion and seduction. The outcome need not always be negative, since the two are equally likely to fall in love, a special instance of love at first sight. If they function properly, both Anima and Animus should be like a sort of bridge or door between personal unconscious and the collective unconscious. For this reason, it is useful to get in touch with our Anima or Animus because they have valuable messages for us. They also have a huge role to play in making relationships with the opposite sex successful, playing a form of synergy, from the Greek word meaning yoked together. We are always looking for our other half, the half that we feel is missing, in members of the opposite sex. This is another good example of Jung's idea about balanced opposites that are so basic to the functioning of the psyche. We'll of course be moving back over to Carl Jung here in a second and the works on the archetypes of the Anima and Animus. But before that, I want to actually start including some of the panels from Wounds because how it incorporates into why I'm talking about this. First off, in Wounds, you have two different pieces of growth. One, Guts opening up and sharing with Casca his traumatic experiences in the past with Gambino and Donovan, only in the moment that he's happy, only in the moment that he actually starts incorporating his Animus, his feminine side, does he start opening up to a feminine character, that being Casca. Casca is open and warm to him during this moment because she is getting from Guts what she needed, and that's to be treated like and feel like a woman, something she never had with Griffith. Prior to this in the story, you may be able to see like brotherly love between Griffith and Guts, but when it comes to Casca, it actually is very much so the leading factor that leads to Guts actually changing as a character. When she started referring to him in the Golden Age arc as he was growing with Band of the Hawk as a bad dog, Guts actually literally incorporated that so much into his psyche that later on in the story you see
as an archetype has a mad dog, a chained mad dog even. I'll also use this moment to address a question that most had as far as like the symbolic meanings of the brands and where they were put on the body during the eclipse. The reason why Guts has it on the neck is because that's typically where a dog collar would be. He so much incorporated what Casca has told him and said to him that he actually started thinking of himself as a mad dog, and that became a permanent fixture within his psychology and his psychological state.
Now, I don't care if you're overly spiritual or religious or anything, but in my videos, we're probably going to be covering a few topics within the Holy Bible. First of which is Genesis and Carl Jung's works here, and tying those two together. In Genesis, when Adam and Eve were created, it said that two are to become one. A lot of people interpreted that as meaning that you would have a child. And of course, that is one very good interpretation for it, but I feel Carl Jung's work on this actually fits better, especially in the regard of constant guts. When the Anima and Nemas become one, two flesh become one. And in that, they are extremely likely to have a child. Even in the instance of the closing chapter of Wounds, Casca is saying that she wants something from Guts, a scar that only he can give her. And in return, maybe she can give a scar that only she can give him. She even goes on to elaborate out how she's changing and how she has genuine feelings for Guts, feelings that she's never had before for Griffith. She always thought of herself as Griffith's sword, nothing more like a woman. She sees how Griffith interacts with Charlotte, and she knows that she's never going to be that for Griffith. What is at that point in time that she starts developing feelings, romantic feelings for Guts, because he's actually there to treat her like a woman, something that, once again, Griffith could never give her. Griffith doesn't care about women, he only cares about them as an objective. He was nice and open to Casca because he needed a new soldier. It had nothing to do with her being a woman. I guess in that regard, Griffith is at all equal rights. After all, what reason does somebody who has to see others as pawns and property have to then to treat a woman as if she is the same? A slave master is always going to be a slave master. It's always going to boil down to how he treats his servants. So with that, that's actually the reason why I wanted to bring up Carl Jung in the first place. With Guts, he has an admiration for Casca. If he did not respect her in a way that actually showed her that he was being empathetic and sympathetic for what she says, like, for example, the Mad Dog piece, he would have never opened up to actually caring about others. Casca is the one that actually enabled him to understand that he needs to have connections with other people. The Great Band of the Hawk. Out of all the characters within Berserk, the one that actually humanized Guts and brought him back to actually trying to seek out a community was Casca. It wasn't Griffith. Griffith just gave him the foundation. Casca is the one that built the structure on top of it. There's a lot of instances, actually, and it's one of the reasons why I'm going to be doing a Casca Did Nothing Wrong video, where Casca is actually the one that kept the Band of the Hawk together. She's the one who actually ended up getting as far as it did, until Guts came along. Like the prophetess she was, at least in Griffith's eyes, she was tossed to the side for Guts. I want you. These words absolutely destroyed Casca. And it's for that reason why Casca, in this instance, was only able to start opening up to being a woman rather than property, rather than just being Griffith's sword, and started actually having feelings for Guts. She, through Guts, actually learned that she didn't necessarily hate her being a woman. It was just part of her. Guts actually helped her realize that. By being open to what Casca is saying, Guts starts internalizing what she's saying and starts changing his behaviors because of that. And that's where he starts to grow very fond of the Band of the Hawk. If Griffith brought Guts to the Band of the Hawk, it's Casca that made him stay. A point that many within the fandom seem to miss. But now we're going to segue to two other points, and this is going to kind of help try to make this go for full circle. The point number one, it's not just Casca who called, essentially, Guts a dog. And this is where things are going to get a little bit traumatic. Everybody knows Gambino and what happened with him, right? But what many people seem to overlook is how Gambino had a dog. And that dog was treated better than Guts was.
He loved that dog more than he did Guts, his pseudo son. When that happens, unfortunately, it seems like it wasn't Casca that essentially set Guts down the road that essentially he seems himself as a mad dog. In part, it was also Gambino. That's why whenever they make love, Gambino pops into his head. The moment that he's happy, he can't help but think to himself that he killed his father, the father that loved a dog more than he did him. You're just a mad dog. You're just a mad dog. This has to have been going through Guts' head throughout his entire life. And we wonder somehow, some way, why he has a dog collar on him. Also, on the symbolic nature of the brands, the reason why Guts has a one on his neck, once again, is because it's supposed to be symbolic of a dog collar. But what most people overlook is the fact that when it comes to that brand, it was based off of Griffith's mental state, psychological state. Meaning, unfortunately, even his best friend could not see him as anything more than a dog needing to be on a leash. But that's also one of the reasons why I want to bring this up in the first place. When we read the manga, you can get a flashback or a scene or a dream, whatever you want to call it, when Griffith's about to sacrifice, where he sees himself in Guts' shoes as being Kafka's partner, and they have a child, they have a dog that they name Guts. Then you have Griffith going into a little tangent about how he thinks that Guts is still out there, swinging your sword around like the mad dog he is. And it's with that I want to bring something else up. Unfortunately, when it comes to Guts, he misses a lot of red flags when it comes to Griffith because of the fact that he had a relationship with Gambino. Somebody who only saw his comrades, his associates, as partners, slaves, property, possession, whatever you need to call them. It's all just words anyway. They are what they are. Sacrifices. For an altar, nobody even gets a chance to see or know about. And it's for that very reason that Casca's circumstances are so very traumatic, even so more than Guts at times. What Casca wanted when she started realizing she was okay with being a woman was a child. When you look at the latter parts of Berserk, the fragment that really broke Casca when she was in the eclipse wasn't just the loss of the band of the Hawk, wasn't just the circumstances in which she was raped and taken by she was taken advantage of by apostles prior to Griffith taking his quote-unquote turn. She lost a child, the very scar that she wanted from Guts and to give Guts. The only thing that kept her sanity in check after losing the band was the possibility of becoming a mother for Guts. That is why in some of my most favorite translations of the series, translation that I prefer more than anything, is I want to give you a scar, and I want a scar from you that only you can give me, and only one I can give you, that being a child. Because she lost a child, she lost her sanity, and more than that, she lost her grip on what she had actually started attaining, the connection with the Enema, the acceptance of having a male counterpart in your life and actually working towards them being a man and her being a woman. Not to sound like there are gender roles or anything like that, but in this potential instance, both of them have roles that they do have to play for each other. It's kind of the point of a relationship, especially one that involves monogamy. You're there for life. Two flesh become one. And that's, once again, not to get this in a religious conversation or anything like that, though that's probably going to happen with us covering Carl Jung. Regardless, though, what Casca wanted from Guts was something Griffith would never give her, that being a child. Instead of giving her a child, Griffith took it from her. Griffith is unforgivable, and Casca's story rivals Guts in terms of traumatic impact. Because instead of having the wound, the scar that only Guts could give her, she now had open wounds that refused to close because of Griffith. She can never have the scar because the bleeding will never stop. That's why we see in the most recent chapters of Berserk, when Casca's mind is restored, the final fragment that broke her was that of the child that she lost, or is under the impression that she lost. We are going to close on that, and I do want to get this in a bit of a better mood since that was a bit of a real bummer. But one of the things I want to talk about is that there was a conversation I see in most Berserk groups about whether or not the boy is actually Guts' kid. It's 100,000% Guts' kid. I brought this up before, but the sheer determination and willpower of this child is unbelievable, rivaling Guts, even surpassing Guts. And unfortunately, I think that with us being the reader, rather than being submerged into the story, it sometimes has led to, unfortunately, Guts' life being seen as the worst ever. You know who's on par for certain about that, beyond Casca? That's the boy. Not only did he survive the eclipse and still was born, even if he was corrupted, he, as a ghost, then carries on to watch over Casca and Guts, even warning Guts at times when Casca's in danger. The tragic part about Berserk right now is it seems like only Casca, broken Casca, is aware that the boy is her child. It's not just some random child that she's clinging on to. Otherwise, she would always be clinging on to Ishidro and Shirenke. It's the boy. She, as a broken character, knows that that's her child. It's what leads to one of the best moments in the entire series, where the boy is playing around on Guts and he starts dropping it, and they both catch him. One of those family moments that just you love the fact that you're seeing it, but the fact that the trauma is there, the fact that they don't know, that they can't express it, that they can't communicate it, that breaks people, just like it broke Casca. And with that, the conclusion. So with the boy and Casca and Guts, Guts to this day still doesn't know that that's actually his child. He thinks that it's a corrupted spirit. He doesn't understand that that child, that boy, is his. The scar that only Casca could give Guts, the wounds that only Casca could give Guts, Guts doesn't even recognize them. And with that painful reminder, in closing, as mentioned at the beginning of the video, pursuit of these videos is to make sure that at least I can make some sort of crusade to get Kentaro Miura a Nobel Prize in Literature. This story is, people say it's a masterpiece, and it is, but this is the works of legend, and I feel like it should be acknowledged as that. It should be up there with Tolkien in The Lord of the Rings, but it's not. Perhaps it's because it has too much of a dark element to it. Perhaps actually embracing the fact that humanity, even without the influence of dark forces, is capable of terrible things. Who knows? But the man deserves a Nobel Prize. And it is my goal to make sure at least I give a good presentation for that case. Thanks for watching. If you want to, please subscribe. It would help.